6, while the EYFS came, which is a British system, where you teach children through play, fun, and dance, lots of hands-on as well, but they didn't create material like Maria Montessori did. So with the EYFS, you could create your own material. So it gives you room for material making. Doesn't mean that the Montessori is limiting you. Then in the American system, they have so many other curriculum or methods that you could follow. For instance, there's the Mother Goose Time, which comes with a package for each day activity for the children to work with. So if you have 20 days in a month, for instance, let's take out Saturdays and Sundays, you have each pack for a child to work with, and they have a theme. So they create their activity based upon the theme. Yeah, so that's basically what.
Okay.
What of the Nigerian system? Or
Um,
is it a mix of all of them?
Well, well, with the early years curriculum for the Nigerian system, there's still a lot of work to be done. It's not as bad as it used to be. It's a lot better because there's a lot of rigor. They want children to count and start to write early, do a lot of things. Meanwhile, these other curriculums are trying to develop critical thinking, thinking outside the box, creativity, and all of that. But if you have a good understanding of them and you decide to create a balance, because regardless of whatever curriculum we run, we have to understand that we're in Nigeria and we can't take away that factor.
Most schools in Nigeria advertise both curriculums, like the British and the American, like together. They don't pick one. So I've always wondered, isn't it confusing when teaching the pupils in school? Are they supposed to pick just one, or can they do both at once?
Okay, different people pick different things that work for them, but personally, I don't think that we should blend too many curriculum. It confuses the children, especially when it gets to points where they have to write external exams. For instance, if you have to balance blending the British curriculum or the Cambridge curriculum with the Nigerian and the American curriculum, come on, that's a lot of work for a child, and it's a lot of work for the teachers too to do, because half the time they're not able to cover their scheme, especially in English language. Yes.
Okay, so you just mentioned teachers, and you're a consultant when it comes to recruiting them. What are the steps, or what are those key factors that you look at while recruiting teachers? Because parents and teachers, they always, my mom owns a school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I see how they butt
And she's
heads.
coming on the show next week. Just saying.
I see how they butt heads.
Okay.
And I would like to know, what are those things to look out for to pick the right teacher for the right age group in the classroom?
Okay, there are lots of factors to consider. First, you have to consider your school. What kind of school am I running? Who do I need? What kind of structure do we operate? Who fits into our system? So I could be a great teacher and I don't fit into your system, and that is okay. And that's just me going a bit specific. So generally, I would look at the spoken English, the elocution, the diction of the teacher, because you just said something about your nephew and how he speaks, and you were like, did he pick it up from the TV or from the classroom or from the teacher? Children speak like their teachers half the time. And of course, yes, the devices enhances and helps them to try to speak that way. And a lot of parents want their children to speak better. So once they tend to speak confidently, they are able to do presentation, they're able to stand out anywhere. So of course, spoken English is one thing I look out for, and then experience. Over time, I've hired people with good certification, grades, master's degree, these, that, and when they come into the teaching profession itself, they cannot do the job. Teaching is not easy. It is not easy. You have to sit, you have to grind, you have to do everything. Your fingers will be burnt and all of that. So you need people that can actually do the job. So I'll take experience over a certification.
Interesting.
Yes.
So let's talk about the children now. Where I live, there are 3 schools on my street. 3. And I like the convenience of the fact that parents should be able to take this. You know how in some places you can walk down the road with your kid and you go to school. When some of us were growing up, the options weren't as many as they are now. And so your parents literally have to drive you to school. Now they have school buses that come pick them up because they're either within the neighborhood or it's provided for. But there are 3 schools where I live on one street. If I had a child, especially between 0 to 5, and for young parents these days, what factors should they consider before choosing a school for their kid, especially early years?
Okay, for Nigeria right now, the first factor any parent should consider when picking a school is safety.
Hmm.
Does that school have a safety policy? How safe is the environment? Proximity. I wouldn't say necessarily proximity to my home. I would say proximity to my office. Because if they call me now and say something is going on, would I be able to just pick up my child quickly? Because if I have to start calling home, start driving down all the way. So safety is of the topmost priority right now when picking a school. Then of course hygiene. 0 to 5-year-olds, they are prone to falling sick at that stage. Their immune system is still very low. So you have to make sure that the place is clean. If possible, pick an environment where the teachers come in with a different shoes, the children come in with a different shoes, and they transition to an indoor shoe or Crocs or socks or something, just to be sure that everywhere is clean. They have a good hygiene process. They sanitize, disinfect, wash their hands, just basic things. And also, what's their sick policy? If a child is sick, do they accept sick children in their school? I mean, a school is not a hospital, like I would always say. So if your child is sick, let your child stay at home. Because at this stage, it just transfers. Just even having cold, it transfers from one child to another, and everybody in the class is sick. So for you to be able to control that, those are things that you ask to see. Do they have all of these things? Fire drill, emergency exit points in schools, rather than what is your curriculum? Will my child be able to count 1 to 100? I mean, those things they would come. I mean, even the young man in Aba Market can count 1 to 100 with money without him even going to school. So that shouldn't be on your topmost priority list. It will come eventually. So look at safety, look at hygiene, look at their fine motor and gross motor activities. So fine motor activities are activities that they do that would help them write, build their muscles, their gross motor, their movements, their balance. Then check if they have a school nurse. All of those little things are very important. Then you can now go into it and say, okay, so how do you guys discipline children here? What are the ethics? How would my child speak? How would they relate to other people? Would they have empathy towards their friends? Would they care for others? Would they share? And then all the other factors come to play before you talk about curriculum, really.
When you mentioned discipline, I smiled.
I know.
Because
like I have been hearing about soft parenting.
they don't discipline how they used to discipline teachers.
Does that make any difference, though?
Yes, it makes a lot of difference. Like I would always say, beating children doesn't correct any behavior. It curbs it for that moment. If you remember the things that your parents used to beat you for, when you got to the university, you did them anyways. So it's better for you to sit with the children, explain to the children, have a one-on-one conversation, look them in the eyes, tell them why this thing is wrong, and just keep talking about it. Give them the confidence that you're here to listen, they can trust you, you're their friends. Just have a good relationship with the children. There's something about the EYFS that is very nice. It's how they treat the personal, social, and emotional development of the child. It's like a prime area in the EYFS. So they believe that if a child has a good relationship with you, that's when they can learn. If a child is happy, that's when they can learn. A child that is hungry cannot learn. But remember, whether you were hungry or not back then, they will teach you, and you must learn, and you must write exams and all of those things. So these days, there are different systems that have created a balance where children can actually be okay and all right to do certain things.
So earlier you mentioned that the Montessori system was actually created for children with special needs. Do you think that's what's going on right now in Nigeria, or is it now open to?
Okay, so it was
other
designed for children with special needs, but it's open to everybody. So I mean, a system that was designed for children this way to succeed, if the regular children adopt that method, they would do way better. So the Montessori system encourages a lot of independence, especially in the practical life. It helps children. You see young children being able to serve you drink with glass cups, mugs, clean the house, put on their shoes, button their shirts, zip and unzip. So basically, it's not just for children with special needs anymore. No, it's open to everybody. So a lot of schools have adopted it, and it's beautiful. I think it's amazing.
So I know money plays a major role in our decisions, but there's always the debate of public and private schools, and we hear a lot more of that when it comes to secondary and tertiary education. For most people, it's the how much that determines it, and we know the country we are in right now and the economic situation. What's your take on the public and private school debates? And does it matter?
Well, like you said, money plays a lot of factors. I don't think that the parents that have their children in Nigerian public schools actually want their children to be there if things were different, because you would agree with me that there's a clear gap between the public and the private school, especially in 21st century. For instance, they don't have access to a lot of hands-on resources. We've been talking about curriculum that allows children to explore, use materials and all of that, both from the early years to the primary. For instance, there are primary schools in Abuja that their children already do online assessments for everything. They've gone paperless with a lot of things. That's not taking away the fact that the children still write, because handwriting is a skill that the child must develop. So at that stage, if my child in a private school is already exploring the Google space, the Google Classroom, understanding how to create Google Doc, understands how to create slides in year 1 and year 2, these were things that we learned after we had graduated, or basically in the university if your parents pushed you further. But right now, a 7-year-old can do that. So at what point would you compare that child to a child in a public school that doesn't even have access to that technology or that resources to teach? So the gap is really clear.
So what can be done now in those public schools to at least adjust a bit to meet up to a certain extent to, the private level?
Okay, so basically there are times where we offer free trainings to teachers in the public schools. We try to, reaching them is almost impossible because we explore a lot of social media options. We try to talk to people that know somebody that can reach out to them. But in the end, we still get just a few of them show up with it. So in a country like this, where we're very quick to say government this, government that, yes, we know that we have all of the government issues, but as individuals, we need to step out and start to do something, no matter how small. So we do trainings, we get to reach some of them sometimes, and we start from there. So if other people can step out and say, okay, I'm intentional about this, I am a consultant or I am a school and I'm training my teachers this week, but I want like 5 teachers from public schools to join in the training for free. Because even with them, even when you offer them free trainings, there are questions they would ask you, would there be transportation allowance? And so it's really hard, but if you're intentional about it, you will be able to achieve no matter how little. So it's time for private individuals to actually just start stepping up and start doing something rather than just relying on the governments.
So besides private and public schools, there's also the religious school debate. And we've seen records show that some of the religious-based schools have produced really great students. So there's like King's College, Queen's College, there's Loyola Jesuit, there's Mount St. Gabriel Secondary School in Makurdi where I went to. And we've seen some of them do really well. Is there a reason for that, and should that also influence the choice of schools for parents?
Well, some of the schools that you've mentioned are I'm quite familiar with them. But if you come to a school like Loyola Jesuit, for instance, they don't accept students or children in primary school that are not on the A level, the A+ level. So they've already picked out the best in the society. There's no how I would already pick out the best and I won't be able to harness them to even be better. So they're not picking people that are on the average level. So really, I don't think that's a balanced equation, because if you come into a classroom, there are different children with different abilities and different learning styles. And then I'm only picking Andy because he's the best in all subjects.
Of course.
Yes. So, I mean, I've picked him from here. I go to the next school, I pick the best. Of course, I'm only picking gifted and talented children in my school. So, the result is already going to be clear that this is what it will be. They're not picking other options. So I can't really judge them and say they're actually the best at what they do. No, they've already picked the best.
That's a really good
Yeah.
angle.
Okay, you mentioned learning styles earlier. So how do teachers support children with different learning styles, different learning needs as well?
Okay, first of all, I had a training yesterday and I was talking about learning style. I said for you to be able to identify a child's learning style, you must first know what your learning style is. How do I learn? Am I an auditory learner? Am I a visual learner? Am I a kinesthetic learner? Once you're able to identify your learning style, you now know that you're not, most times we teach people the way we learn. It's just normal because we feel like I'm an auditory learner, so if I speak to somebody, he should automatically understand what I'm saying. So once you identify your own learning style, then you begin to observe the children. How do they learn? I tell schools that the first 2 weeks of resumption is for observation, especially at the beginning of the new school term. You're observing the child's learning style, you're observing the child's attention span, you're observing the children's behavior while you're setting your class rules as well. So at that point in time, when you identify their learning style, you now know that different children work differently. Auditory learners, once I say something to them, they're able to pick it and it sticks. Visual learners, I have to play a video, I have to show them a card, I have to talk about it. Once there's a reinforcement video for it, they get it. Kinesthetic learner, I will talk about it, I will play a video, and then I will bring an activity for us to carry out for them to be able to learn. And a balanced classroom is that classroom that goes through all of those three styles, three levels of learning. And if you're able to achieve that, then you would see that there's result at the end.
Talking about training, before we let you go, I understand you have another training session also
Yes.
today. Tell us about it, and also for schools that want your services, how can they find you?
Okay, I have a training today at 1 and it's on vision board. It's called Envision in 2023. So basically what we do at the beginning of the year is that we get teachers to plan their year, both talking about their personal life, what they want to achieve, because half the time you see teachers say things like we just walk around the clock and we keep growing other people's businesses and we are not growing personally. So we want to get to that, we've gotten to that point where we're trying to help them grow personally and professionally. So the vision board is my personal vision board, what I want to achieve, how do I intend to achieve it, a roadmap to achieving whatever I have put down there, and my classroom vision board. Every child in my class is unique, is different, they learn differently, they're different individual. How do I want to get them from point A to point B? So that's basically what the training we're having today is about.
And how do we find you on socials?
Okay, so just type Teachers Recruitment Consult and I would pop, or you could go to our website, www.teachersrecruitmentconsult.com.
I think Didi has
Alright.
one more question for you.
Yes.
And I think you've answered all my questions, but I would check your Instagram.
Okay,
Yes, we
yes.
will. And we'll continue this conversation next week because it's the beginning of a school year and extremely important that we lay the right foundation. And we've also seen the importance of education. Also in the face of insecurity in schools, I like the fact that the first thing Bilkis mentioned was that in selecting a school, you need to think about security and safety. I've learned so much. In case I have a child in future, if I decide to, I've learned so much from you. So Bilkis Musa, Teachers Recruitment, it's a pleasure having you on the show and learning from you, and all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Didi.
And to our viewers at home, we have a lot for you. We have a mixologist who's going to be making mocktails for us and teaching Didi how to make mocktails. So we'll have that soon. So we have a bit of something to drink to start the year. Non-alcoholic. We also have our political segment. We have our political interlude and much more for you on the show. So don't go away. See you after this break.